All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Best Self Blueprint. So, as you all know, the mission of this podcast is to bring on people who are genuinely in pursuit of becoming their best self and who have knowledge, expertise, and insights that'll help you along the same journey. So, this next guest is someone I've been following for a very long time on social media. She is someone who's going to help a ton with clearing the air on how to actually avoid burnout, not just through an inspirational pep talk, but also through strategies, through tactics. She is not only a teacher, but also a personal trainer. And she helps her niche, if you will, is helping other teachers stay healthy, stay fit without dealing with burnout, stress, anxiety, and a lot of stuff that comes with a busy schedule. So whether you're a teacher or not, you're going to get a ton out of this conversation. But I wanted to officially introduce Arden Shiller. How you doing?
Hey, how are you, Trevor?
I am good. As I probably overstated, I'm very excited for this conversation. So,
You too.
where I wanted to start was talking about burnout. So, let's say like a client comes to you and they've got their job, they've got a side hustle, and they're still trying to operate all the other parts of their life and they just feel burnt, they feel stressed. What is kind of your first steps to run people through in order to get them to stop burning out?
Yeah, so I really focus on the importance of small steps and, being able to take one thing at a time and also realize that sometimes less is more. And so a lot of people will come in and be expecting to work out 7 days a week, an hour each day, or 2 hours each day. And then that's what's going to, have them see results. But really, it's actually just being able to build muscle and burn body fat. And that is really the way to see progress. And you don't have to do that. It's actually really not good to do it 7 days a week, right? So, as my clients come in, the first thing we really focus on is getting into a consistent workout routine, whether that's, 3 to 4 days a week and finding that 45 minutes of time for each workout 3 times a week. And then over time, they'll start mindfully eating, and then we'll slowly begin tracking the foods that they eat. And I also provide them with a ton of different resources to help them be able to, find meals that help fit in their macro goals, in their nutrition goals, so that they can slowly but surely kind of get on track with nutrition as well. And I always say that this is a super duper, small step process. So if they're not working out 3 times a week, then we're not going to move on to nutrition. Um, and also teaching them how to be flexible along with creating alternative workout options, right? Because, obviously work gets hard, things get in the way. And so being able to move your workouts around so that you can still get them in during the week, even if it's not on a specific day that you want to do it. Or, if something pops up and you can't go to the gym, if it's a snow day and you can't drive, right? Being able to do a fun at home workout, a body weight workout, a resistance band workout, some sort of alternative workout so that you're still getting up and getting moving is key to having that successful taking those small steps.
Yeah, so the two things that you said that I want to absolutely highlight. The first one is the small steps. So I always picture, and it pops up on social media all the time because I'm following all these motivational things, but it's so much easier to climb a ladder when the rungs are nice and close than trying to climb a ladder where the rungs are 3 feet apart. You're just going to be doing muscle up after muscle up to try to get up that ladder. So having those small steps allows you to take a small action, then reset, recalibrate, refocus before taking that next step. And I think another inherent benefit of it is it just allows for more presence. So it allows you to take that small step, be there with the victory, celebrate it, and then that gives you that momentum into the next step as well. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and this has been popping up so much for me, so I'm glad you mentioned this, is simplicity. There just with everything going on nowadays, especially with people who have a lot going on, it's really easy to allow the flood of complexity to just take you down. But when you break everything you're doing into bite-sized chunks, and again, presence, correct me if I'm wrong, is a big part of this. When you're just with the thing that you're doing and you give it all your attention, it becomes a lot more simple. But I think what creates complexity, at least in people's heads, is the fact that they're doing this thing right now, but then they have 50 other things to do after. And that's where the focus just gets split. So I absolutely love the idea of simplicity. Now, in your life personally, how do you kind of break it up? How do you create kind of the segues between like doing school teaching, then working with your clients, then getting your workouts in, then keeping your relationships healthy? Like, how do you make sure that it stays good, like stays optimized for each area?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times, as I said, I work out 3 times a week. A lot of things that I do are usually I take pre-workout because I'm exhausted, but I need something that's going to get me through my workout. And then I usually will make sure, that I'm grinding, right? So the cool thing about being busy is that you actually don't realize if you don't have a set schedule, if you're not, writing out what you need to do each day or logging it in your calendar, it's going to be really hard to grind and to get the stuff you need to get done. So with being busy and having a lot on my plate, I actually schedule everything that I need to do. And this allows me to get the stuff done that I want to get done in usually a shorter amount of time because I'm not procrastinating. I've realized on the days that, if I don't have as much work, it takes me a lot longer to get the smaller things done. If I actually put my mind to it and write out, okay, it's going to take me an hour to, go work out, it's going to take me an hour to lesson plan, then I'm actually able to spend that hour working out, spend that hour or even less lesson planning. So just being able to schedule out everything that I have to do and getting it done and, putting my mind to it is key. I also really like the 25-5 method where I'll like work hard for 25 minutes and then I'll take a 5-minute break. A lot of times during that 5-minute break, I play with my puppy or I'll talk to my boyfriend, like work on our relationship, making sure that I'm giving him the quality time that he deserves. And then I'll go back and, work again for 25 minutes on whatever I was doing or a new project.
This is the perfect segue because I wanted to talk to you about time management actually. And I really like the 25-5 method. I've found I can do like really good 50-minute bursts. So I've kind of just multiplied it by two. So I do 50-10, where I'll do 50 minutes of just programming, calling, emailing, whatever I need to do. And then I take 10 minutes, I'll stretch, I'll just go on my phone and play a game. I'll do something that is still giving me some stimulation, but gives me a break from that singular focus. So I think that's awesome. One thing I'm curious about with your schedule is because yeah, I'll just ask first and then we'll bring it full circle. But do you schedule in downtime or do you schedule in time where you're like chilling out, relaxing, or do you just like not plan that?
Yeah, so I absolutely schedule in downtime. The number one thing that helps with my relationship is that my boyfriend and I, on Friday nights, we always plan to spend them together. Starting at usually about 7 or 8 p.m., we say, okay, Friday night, 8 p.m., off social media, off of our phones, and just, being together, whether that be even just watching movies together, having a couple beers, going out to dinner, hanging out on Main Street, just all of those other things that, being kind of away from our work, our social media, because having that time really creates, it doesn't let our relationship get boring. And then same with, my family as well. I know that it was just Mother's Day, so I planned, no work on Mother's Day, off my phone on Mother's Day, hanging out with my mom. I scheduled in that downtime so that I could spend the quality time with my mom.
Yeah, so it was kind of a baited question because I felt like I knew the answer, but this is so important. And I think the good feeling that comes with downtime gets taken away when it's not earned. And I've talked about this before, but what's so great about how we both set up our schedules is we have scheduled out throughout the day, like, okay, work out, build business, do all these things. So that way, okay, when my schedule pops up in it, I just write chill. That's it. That's all it says in my schedule is just chill. When that pops up, I know I can let go, relax because I've done everything I need to do. Obviously, there's still more stuff for down the road, but you don't feel bad because you've earned it. And I think that's where a lot of this inherent like stress and anxiety starts to come up is people haven't really put in the work. They've maybe gone to their job, but they haven't put in the work for something that lights their passion. They haven't moved their body. They haven't meditated or done anything for their mind, and now they're taking a break and consciously they're like, yes, I get to just sit and watch Netflix, but subconsciously they're kicking themselves like, we got to go out and do something, like be productive. That's just part of human nature is we want to be creators and we want to produce. And so I'm so happy that you said that because I think on the other end of the spectrum it's also easy for people who hear like we schedule everything out, our schedule is always full. It's like, no, we do take breaks. We just take scheduled breaks so we understand the balance of everything. I had one client who it was funny. I told him you need to because he likes video games. So I'm like, you need to take at least 2 hours during the work week and just shut everything off and just play video games. He's like, well, that's a waste of time. I'm like, no, that's your like recovery time. Basically, that's what's going to take your mind off of constantly worrying about work. Um, and so I think there's two ends to that spectrum, but it's just a good balancing act to schedule out your downtime. So I really like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there was something else you said that makes yet another good segue. It's like you know what I'm going to talk about. All right. So the next thing is you said when you're hanging out with your boyfriend. Now, keep in mind, she is a health and fitness coach. So this is why I want to bring this up. You have a couple beers.
Mhm.
And I know that's a big part of your content is talking about like you still eat like what you want. You still enjoy foods. You still enjoy these pleasures that come with like alcohol and candy and whatever you want. Again, it's just a balancing act. It's knowing what your body needs, getting that, and then working in these rewards, these treats, these foods and beverages. Dive into your mindset behind nutrition because this is something I think a lot of people need to hear that it doesn't have to be robotic.
Yeah, no, that's exactly with the taking the small steps as well. A lot of my clients will come on and they'll be like, "Yeah, I cut out carbs." And I'm like, "Why?" I mean, there's literally no reason to just go from eating bagels and muffins and enjoying food to being like, "Okay, I'm never going to have that again." That's a really, really big step. And so cutting out carbs or cutting out fats or just immediately going into eating super high protein is going to be really, really hard, which is why I say less is more. And being able to eat in moderation is key. So I'm super passionate about if it fits your macros. And the reason why I teach all of my clients to track their macros and track their calories is because I'm a firm believer that over time, you're going to just be able to look at foods and know whether or not they're going to fit into your everyday goals and if you can eat them in moderation and balance them into your goals, right? And so, cutting out carbs, it's going to be hard to find other foods that fit into your goals, right? So, when you slowly start to, obviously just eat foods that you're cooking from home or eating what they consider quote unquote healthier meals, um, you can also find a little bit of balance by finishing the meal with like I'll tell my clients to have a handful of M&Ms, right? Or to have a chocolate bar that day or drink some chocolate milk or have half a muffin before you go to the gym, right? Because this is going to fit in their goals. And they also can get a better understanding of what foods are made up of, right? Our food industry is super, super, super based off of high fat, high carb foods because they taste good and it's going to bring us back to them over and over and over again. So I'm really passionate about teaching my clients that you can definitely incorporate those into your everyday life as long as you're not eating too much, right? There's really just a difference between overeating, undereating, and eating the right amount. And if you are eating too much, well, then obviously you're going to gain weight. And if you're under eating, you're not really going to see much progress in the gym. You're not going to be able to fuel your muscles. And so finding the right balance for you is key. And that's what's going to help you see progress and create a sustainable and balanced lifestyle.
Yeah, it reminds me of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, where a lot of people simply take it as I'm just eating too much. I need to cut down on how much I'm eating. But that's the ceiling. There's also a floor to this. Like if you're not eating enough, your body runs on energy and it needs the right amount of energy. It's not like if you plug your phone in until it gets to 2%, you can't expect it to charge you the whole day. It's the same thing with food. If you aren't putting enough energy in your system, that system's not going to run optimally. Now, like, are you just going to like fall asleep walking down the sidewalk? Probably not, but you're not going to be as sharp mentally. You're not going to be as energized physically. And so that's such an important thing for people who are on this fitness journey to realize is you do need to be eating enough food. It's not like you can just like grit your way down to like 800 calories a day and then all of a sudden you're magically going to have washboard abs. It's like you do need to be eating enough. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Mhm.
Now, I want to switch gears a little bit because this is just my sheer curiosity, but I'm sure a lot of people in pursuit of their best self, especially if they've taken my advice, are working on some type of side hustle or some type of like hobby that they've turned into a passion project. In terms of business, when did you first go from like casually giving advice to friends on fitness to now you're already talking about adding on an employee to your business? Like when and how did that shift happen?
Yeah, so I was helping a lot of my friends throughout college. And it was really in college, it was to look good, to feel not really, I don't even know if to feel good, but to feel good about myself, which is why I started weightlifting. It wasn't until January 2018, my father had a heart attack, and thankfully he survived. But unfortunately, it put a it was one of my life defining moments where I was like, I don't want to just work out to look good. I actually want to do this for health and wellness. And so I started helping my father. I started helping my mother. I started teaching my little sister how to lift weights. And over time, I started my first year teaching. And as most teachers know, your first year teaching is so hard. I was at school before the gyms were open and at school after the gyms closed. So I started to fall off track myself. And it wasn't until I noticed that my students weren't growing at all. Like literally the school district put the amount of put all the classrooms up on the board and it said like the amount that they've grown, the percent, and my class only grew 2%. And so like I was in tears because it was my first year. I was working so hard, obviously. But what I didn't realize is that I wasn't really being my best self because I was just putting so much energy into my job. And so I went home that day, I pulled out my gym clothes and I said, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to start focusing on me and I'm going to be the best version of me so that my students can grow to be the best version of themselves as well. And it was literally in that next month that my students' growth tripled. So that was kind of one of those moments that was like, wow, like there's so many teachers that are working their butts off, especially during this whole year of the pandemic, where they literally have no time for their family, no time for their friends, no time to take care of themselves. So I started noticing that March 2020 when everything was closing down and everything was practically like, oh my God, what do we do? Right. And all of these teachers started gaining a lot of weight because they were sitting at home now. They weren't really doing anything except being on their computer. And so I started helping out my coworkers. And by July, I was helping out at least 10 teachers that I knew. And by August, I started at a new job in a new school district, and I was literally helping all of these teachers there too. And I was like, I need to like I need to somehow, like, start a business. I wanna do something because I wanna help more. I didn't know how to take on more teachers. I was literally doing this through, like, I was sending text messages to all of these people. "This is what you do at the gym. This is what you can do." And they're like, "What do you mean?" And I'd, like, have to go record a video. It was just so much. I was like, "I need to figure out how to, like, make this work in a way where I can help, like, 10, 15 people at once." Um, so I actually invested in a business coach for online training because I was like, okay, if I'm a teacher, obviously I'm not going to train in person. I'm going to have to do some online stuff. And I got my personal trainer certification and I immediately invested in a coach and he helped me move everything online and start my business. And within like literally from August to December, I reached 35 clients. I started posting on social media. I was seriously enjoying it. And I started to realize how many teachers I was actually impacting along with their classes as well. It was those moments of like, wow, like, obviously as a teacher, I have 25 students in front of me who I impact every day, but think of the 35 other teachers that I was helping that were impacting their students in front of them. So this kind of became like really serious. I was like, okay, so now that I'm realizing that I'm helping so many teachers along with so many students, which is our next generation, I need to get more serious about this. And that's kind of where, starting in January, I dove in deeper, took on more clients, took on more teachers, and really, really, reached a point where I had to almost even choose between teaching and coaching. And I reached a point where I did choose to coach full time by the end of February. And with that being said, too, I've hired already a kindergarten teacher to help out so that she's still teaching and coaching. She has 20 clients on her plate and she loves them. They're all teachers as well. And so now we're at a point where we need to hire another assistant coach who looks like it's going to be a first grade teacher, which we're excited about. And she's going to have a bunch of clients on her plate as well. And so it's just that bigger impact, which is really exciting um, because we're helping teachers and the next generation.
So one thing I want to point out before I really dive into my whole like interpretation of what you just said,
Mhm.
listen to the passion when she talks about this stuff. So anyone listening to this, you need to find something like that where like as soon as you started talking about this, you just lit up and you like progressively started getting like more into it and you started like kind of like leaning closer into the camera.
I noticed that.
That's what you want though. Like that is the bread and butter of what makes life so amazing is when you find that thing. And that's something I do too, where I'll be hanging out with my friends, we'll be talking about a whole slew of topics, and then health and fitness gets brought up, and it's like a flip just switches in my head, and I am a totally different person. And obviously, that's not going to be health and fitness for everybody. It could be something as simple as writing or drawing or painting or making t-shirts. I don't know, anything, but there's something in your head that makes you flip that switch and just go full passion on people. Um, so again, I think that's amazing that not only have you found that thing, but you've really gone all in on it and you've invested in yourself and you've invested in other people who you've seen on the similar journey. And I think what's so powerful about your journey in particular is you've leaned into what Dean Graziosi calls mess to message. So mess to message just means you went through the journey. Like you have that backstory of you weren't very healthy. You had that whole like series of events happen through like the beginning of college, and then you really got serious about it and you went through that crucible, I guess, if you want to call it that, and you came out with a message. And like there are a lot of people who come out with that message and they use it for like just their self growth, which there's nothing wrong with that. But then there's people who use that message and they turn around and they help as many people as they can who are now in the mess that they were in. And so I think that's just so amazing that you found that thing and you've really leaned into it with all of your force. Now, a couple of things I want to dive into for people who are actually like looking to start their own business, or maybe people who have started their own business who aren't seeing traction. Your progression was fast. Like it sounds like just the pace at which this developed is definitely above average. So I don't want people to think like, okay, if you started your business in January and you aren't at 40 clients by now, like you're a failure. It's like, no, that was like an A plus on the business scale of like growth and scaling. But at the same rate, like you noticed she was very methodical about like putting different pieces in place and how she utilized social media and how she networked with different teachers at different schools. And now it sounds like you're very intentional about like you want to hire people who are teachers or who have some tie to the school system as well, so you can really keep that message there. You need that level of intentionality because that was something I didn't have. I was running around. It didn't matter who, it didn't matter when. I just wanted to talk to you about fitness. And it was only when I got very intentional. And it's almost like a chess game where you have to put the right pieces in the right places at the right times to really maximize the return on where you're investing your time and energy. So I just really want people to take away that from your story. Now, as it pertains to business, let's say I'm someone who I don't own my own business, but I have a passion. Let's say my passion is doesn't even matter. I have a passion. And I come to you and I say, "Hey, I'm looking to start this business. I want to do this thing. What what like obstacles should I really be ready for? What would your advice be to someone like that?"
The obstacles would definitely be being able to overcome the days that you don't have the momentum or you don't have the motivation. There's definitely days or even weeks where I'm like, I write out my schedule and I do not follow it. And I'm like, I'd rather just sleep all day. I'd rather just eat all day. I don't want to go to the gym. I don't feel like working out. I don't feel like recording content. I don't look good today. There's days like that. And that's just like any normal human being. And those are the hardest days to overcome. It's hard to get back into that momentum, back into that mindset. But the key is to consistently remind yourself of that why. Why did you start? Why are you doing this? Keep going, keep pushing through. Um, and then also failing. Um, the number one thing that I've noticed is for I first started and I started a Facebook group and it has 1,700 people in it now, 1,700 teachers. And it's such an incredible community. But when I first started, there were literally like, I don't know, 50 people in it. And for weeks, I mean, at least, I want to say at least like until January, every single week, once a week from July to January, I was doing a free workout on Zoom and I would log on every time. And the only person that would come on would be my mom. Like that was it. Out of all the people, even as my Facebook group grew, even as I started reaching 1,000 people, 1,500 people, I was doing these Zooms every week and no one came on. Literally nobody except my mom. And I just kept doing it and kept doing it. And it wasn't until like mid-December that I finally did a Zoom and like 15 people randomly came on. And it was like that moment that was like, wow, like I've done this like 20 times and it's just been me and my mom. And now all of a sudden my mom was like, Arden, do you see how many people came up? Like my mom was more excited than I was because I was like, finally, like I was feeling this sigh of like, wow, like I failed so many times. Like there was nobody for so, so long. And it took months for like randomly all these people to come on. Um, and so it's those moments of just not giving up and letting failure kind of fuel you, right? every time somebody didn't show up to the Zoom, I said, well, I'm going to do it next week and hopefully someone else comes, you know? And I used it as fuel rather than to put me down and make me feel worse. Um, and I pushed through those difficult days and said, you know what, I got to do this. I'm going to do this.
Yeah. So the failure thing is huge. I mean, this is something, unfortunately, we were taught to perceive failure as a bad thing. And as you grow up, especially like the more ambitious you are, the quicker you'll realize that failure is one of the best gifts you can be given because of the fact that it teaches you so much about yourself as well as teaches you so much about whatever process you're pursuing. So I love the fact that you say like every failure just motivated you more. It's the same thing with me. It's like it's as simple as like if I don't close a deal with a client or a potential client, it makes me think about like, oh, that's just one more person I'm not going to get to impact. And so now I'm like, okay, now I need to go find like five more people because like that's how passionate I am about what I do and how much impact I have. And so I think when you have again that inherent fire underneath what you're doing, it makes that failure just a catalyst to pushing forward. Now, I want to dive back into what you said about the motivation because this is usually I don't post like stuff like this on my personal page. I save it for my business page. But yesterday I felt the need to put something on my personal page about commitment. And so Inky Johnson, I'll just read the quote right now. Commitment is staying true to what you said you would do long after the mood that you said it in has left. And yesterday was definitely one of those days where it had left. And so I started talking about there are plenty of days I don't want to train. There are plenty of days I don't want to sit down and call 20 different businesses about doing workshops for them and contact 50 different potential clients and just do all of that. But you have to remind yourself, you said the perfect word and it's why. Like, why are you doing this? There are a lot of people who will say, well, because I want to make money. That's not actually why you're doing this. That's a byproduct of what you're doing, but why you're doing it has to be so much deeper. So I'll just run people through what I put. So I talk about like your mind starts playing tricks. It starts justifying why today would be the good day to take off, why it's okay to, kick your shoes up, relax. But like you have to separate what your mind is saying from the truth because there are a lot of times where it's just your mind buying into that evolutionary process of keeping you safe and comfortable and it's going to contrast with the goals that you have. The bigger the goals, the more your mind's going to try to talk you into staying where you're at. So I said, first one, I want to be an example of pushing your limiting beliefs and just going beyond what you believe is possible for you. There's no way I'm going to be an example of that if I don't do that. And there's no way I'm going to do that if I keep justifying why I get to take the day off. So that's the first one. The second one is I personally want to live an extraordinary life, extraordinary. And that requires extraordinary effort. That means there are a lot of days I can't take off, even if I want to. It's a sacrifice I am more than happy to pay, but in the moment, I'm probably going to complain a little bit about it. And then the third one is, and this is something I want everyone to know because there are people who don't want to live an extraordinary life. I'm not judging that. There are plenty of people who are fine with like just a nice, simple life, basic needs, and they're happy. And I think that's amazing. That's not me. But this third one is anyone who's in this boat. I want you to really listen to this one. I am so blessed to be here, have the opportunities that I have, and be surrounded by the people I'm surrounded with. And I owe it to those people to be the best person I can, regardless if it's convenient or not. You always, regardless of who you are, you have a lot of people watching you. And it's up to you to prove to them that they are a positive impact in someone's life, that what they're doing is a positive effect on another individual. And that to me is so huge. Like there are a lot of people who just didn't wake up this morning. You are so blessed to have this 24 hours And to me, if you're not making the most of it, that's just a total disrespect to the fact that you're here. So if you couldn't tell, when I start talking about a why, I get super into it. But I just wanted to bring that up, and now I'll give the spotlight back to you.
Yeah, I definitely I agree. I think the whole why factor is key to, pushing through the hard times. I call it the inner baby voice is gonna tell you everything that you don't want to do, and tell you not to do it. I used to tell my kindergartners, I'd say, listen, I'm gonna give you this math worksheet, and your inner baby voice might tell you, you don't want to do it. I'm like, but here's the thing, to be a successful student, you're gonna have to do it. So you got to tell your inner baby voice, I'm going to be a big kid, right? And so growing up, and learning that through school is definitely key. And as teachers, if we can't get rid of our inner baby voice, how are we going to help our students get rid of their inner baby voice? Because that baby voice is honestly negative. It's not going to let us be our best selves. It's going to consistently hold us back from stepping outside of our comfort zone and being the best versions of ourselves. So I think it's super, super important to make sure that we're overcoming those baby voices in our head.
Oh man, you just said the key words. If you aren't helping yourself, you have zero chance of effectively helping other people. Like you need to figure out the puzzle of this thing before you show someone else how to solve it. And that's so huge. So like now I'm just really curious. So how how have you seen like the impact on kids? Like have you taught kids these lessons and then seen them implementing them when it comes to like mindset and just how they think and how they talk and how they perceive things? Like what are a few of your main lessons to kids that if they get nothing else from your classroom other than like these few things outside of like their ABCs and one, two, threes and all that, but like personality wise or mindset wise, what are like the few key things that you want to make sure they take away?
Um, Throughout my teaching career, I've noticed that a bunch of my students have really learned to push through the hard times. And I think they've definitely taken that from me. Also, realizing that like it's good to get up and get moving. The number one thing that I always saw at recess, no kids were ever sitting by the wall and just chilling. Like they were all up and moving, whether that's just, racing from one side of the playground to the other, hanging and having a contest, who can hang longer on the monkey bars. Just coming up with creative games to stay active and to enjoy themselves, in the classroom and push through those times when, like, man, I just want to sit against the wall and just chill, right? Like, and also, I think the my favorite story to tell is when I was teaching in fourth grade. One of my students came in one morning and was like, Miss Schiller, my mom and I found your YouTube and we saw all your healthy recipes and we made stuffed peppers last night and we added it to my recipe book. And it's like those inspiring moments where it's like, oh wow, like you found my YouTube. Like I didn't tell you to look it up. You went and you're inspired by me. So you went, you looked up my YouTube because you know I'm super passionate about health and wellness and you found all these healthy recipes and now she's making this recipe book and it's those moments of if we can get them started now, this is gonna be so much easier for them to overcome that baby voice later.
Oh, that's so true. And that's something I talk about all the time. Now, I don't necessarily talk about it as much in terms of like kids versus adults, but I talk about proactive versus reactive. So, why I do what I do is I want to make sure that people don't have to go to the doctor because they did a workout incorrectly and hurt themselves. I don't want people to need to be on medications for their mental and emotional health if I can proactively set them up with the tools to prevent that from happening. And I mean, you're taking it as far as it can be taken, where you're talking about like, let's teach these kids as early as we can teach them these habits so they're set up for their entire life. I mean, that takes out so many problems out of the equation if you can just teach kids physical, mental, and emotional health, and then teaching them, basic mindset strategies. I think that's so huge. So yeah, that I could just ask questions about that all day, but I'll digress. And at the end of the day, so I want to wrap it up with this because I think what you said is so cool. You've inspired these kids enough to where they're just looking you up to find content on how you're doing what you're doing and how you've become who you've become. And I think like, and you could see it. You had some humility behind it, but like that's a really proud moment when you've impacted someone on that level. And to everyone listening, I'm telling you, like, she is that type of person. She is a genuine human being who wants to help in any way she can, as many people as she can. And if you don't follow her already, I highly recommend it. I will put all of her social media info in the notes. But Arden, I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for just all of the stuff I threw at you in the last, I don't know, 40 minutes. You have answered it better than I could have ever expected. And I had high expectations. So I want to thank you for that. But I want to thank you for going through your mess and coming out on the other side ready to help as many people as you could. That's not a common thing. I hope you don't think it's a common thing. Like, you have such a good heart. You are such a good person. And I'm so happy that people got to see a little bit of that over the last 40 minutes.
Well, thank you, Trevor. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I have one last question. So this is something I ask everybody. What right now for you is the next step in becoming your best self?
Ooh, good question. It depends. I mean, could that be like after this, I'm gonna go to the gym and try to lift as heavy as I could, or could that be, hiring my next assistant coach? I feel like there's so many ways to be my best self. I just bought a book online, so I'm ready to read my next book. Just every day, being a little bit better than I was yesterday. I think that's how I can be my best self.
Boom, mic drop. Awesome. All right, that's a good way to end it. So for everybody listening, I always appreciate it, and I always give so much respect to people who take time out of their day and invest it in things like this that will give them the perspective of someone who's done what they want to do. Um, just taking the time to really learn, but knowledge is potential power. Implementation is where potential turns to kinetic. So everything you've heard here, make sure you go out and implement it. At least try it out. If there's something that doesn't work for you, that's what other podcasts are for. But I want to thank everybody for listening. Obviously, we want this to reach as many people as possible. So like, share, comment, do whatever else you can do. And Arden, thank you again. To everybody listening, we will catch you next time.